Hi guys. Um Hold on one second. Hi guys. It's been a while since I've done one of these and I'm so happy to be back with you. It's been no reason why I kind of stopped, but I think the Lord kind of put me on a break from ministry for a few weeks. Um anyway, I'm glad to be back. Um this story is called uh, Chance the Rapids, and it's basically the title doesn't come from me. It comes from a song called "The River" by Garth Brooks, where it says, "Choose to chance the rapids, and, dare to dance the tide." So this week's story is called "Chance the Rapids." And next week's story, which will be part 2 to this week's story, um, is Dance the Tide, but Chance the Rapids is part 1 of um, this week's story. This story is about 4 couples. Uh, Marianne and Brent and Melissa and Jack. These 4 couples have been going out for a long time. When the story starts, they're teenagers. And for Melissa and Jack, um, they're not Christians at all. And Jack is um, a a point guard for his high school basketball team. So he's a jock and he loves to play basketball and all of that stuff. And Melissa is a, a kind of a brainy girl. She loves to study and she loves to learn stuff, and she's very smart. And Jack is a jock. And one day they were how they met is that they were in in an English class together, and they sat behind each other. And when they sat behind each other, um, you kind of knew that something was going on because he kept looking at her and she kept looking at him. And when class is over, he asked her out. And at first she said no because he was a jock and he was so cute, and she was kind of a mousy kid, not very popular. Um, but eventually he wore her down and she said yes. And what happened was they started going out, and their relationship was um, was great. It was awesome. They loved each other. They liked hanging out together, but it wasn't something that like that was teen love at first sight. They weren't the kind of couple to make out or whatever. They weren't that kind of couple. They were a more quiet kind of couple that would just be low key and whatever. And Melissa always wondered what it would be like to have that kind of boyfriend, but she just accepted since she met Jack when she was 14. She just accepted that it wasn't going to be that way for them. And if she wanted that, she would just have to read romance books. So, but Jack didn't, but, and, so they, and Jack just accepted that because they didn't talk about it, Jack just thought that, oh, Melissa wasn't that kind of girl, and, sparked her for something in girly novels and stuff like that, and not for them. And, they just accepted that they weren't that kind of touchy-feely, want to be with you all the time kind of couple. And they just accepted that, and they thought, okay, that's not us. And people would tease them that it didn't look like they were in love, that it looked like they were mostly friends. And people would tease them because people would tease Jack because here it was, he was 17 and still a virgin, and people on the basketball team would tease him, and like his friends on the basketball team would say a lot of mean stuff. But Jack didn't tell Melissa what was going on with him and people on the basketball team. He just kind of let it go, but it started to pile up, and he just kind of let it go. So fast forward now, that's Jack and Melissa's relationship. They're together, but they're mostly acting like friends. They're not acting like boyfriend and girlfriend. And they're both having an issue with it, but nobody's saying anything. So come to the second couple in this story, Brent and Amy. Now, Brent and Amy are, now Brent's parents are Christian parents, and Brent is totally a Christ follower. This thing with Brent is really, for Brent, is really real. He's a genuine Christian, loves people, loves life, loves everything. And he wants to do things Christ's way, and he's always in church. But for him, it's an honor. He's in love with Jesus. It's wonderful for him. But Amy, his girlfriend, she's partisan too, and her parents were Christians. but for her, her faith is kind of nominal at best. Like, she goes along with Brent when they talk about church or whatever, and she pretends to be enthusiastic, but she's not really enthusiastic. She's more like, okay, when you talk about Ethan, Brent is like, let's go. And Amy's like, okay, we'll go. Her faith has not really become real for her yet, so it's kind of a quiet thing where she just kind of goes along, and Jesus hasn't become her God yet. And like, and how they met is their parents were friends, and um, their father's churches, because both their fathers were pastors, but their father's churches were right beside each other, and at first there was a feud, but in settling the feud, they decided to become friends and just say, this has got to stop, because they were trying to one up each other. It got ridiculous and out of hand. When one pastor would do this, the other pastor would do that. When one choir would do this, the other choir would do that, and they always tried to one up each other. And one day they just said, it's the same God, it's the same church, why don't we just stop doing that? So when they stopped doing that, trying to one up each other, trying to best each other, and realized that they were both part of the body of Christ, they became friends, and one had a son and one had a daughter. And that's how they met. So when they met, it kind of was assumed that they'd get married and have children. That would also be like a part of the body of Christ, and they would bring their families together, and it would be wonderful. And in their relationship, of course, because they were a Christian couple, there was no sex at all, of course, because we don't, as Christians, we don't believe in sex before marriage and all that stuff. But it was not it was not that they weren't having sex that was the problem. It was the way each of them was feeling about it. Like I said before, Brent was all for Christ and whatever, so he was feeling okay with it. Oh yeah, he had his struggles, but he got accountability and dealt with it. And because he put Christ first, he died to himself and dealt with it. But for her now, it was very different, because she was not really into Christ as much as she didn't really know Christ. She knew of Christ. She wasn't really into Christ the way that her boyfriend Brent was. And what happened was, one summer, Brent went to, when he became a senior, there was a senior's pastoral camp that he signed up for, because he really felt the call to join his father in ministry. And there was this camp for teens who wanted to join in, who wanted to be pastors or lay people in ministry. So he went there for the summer. And Melissa's parents, from Melissa and Jack, she went with her parents to the cottage. So what happened was Jack and Amy were left alone for the summer. And one day, they were Jack was having a basketball game, and what happened was in the basket after the basketball game, Amy was driving, and her car died. She was 17 and her car died, and Jack was coming out of the school building when her car stopped, and he saw her on the road, and then offered to help her, and they started talking, and then there was this connection between them that was just so palpable. Like, when you meet somebody, it's just there. And they started talking, like, what school you go to, small talk, and they discovered that they had so much in common, like music and books and all that. And he felt things that he never felt with his girlfriend Melissa, and she felt things that she never felt with her boyfriend Brent. And they just said that. So he gave her a ride home because her car. No, he waited with her for AAA, and then when AAA towed her car away, he gave her a ride home, and they kind of parted. But when they parted, usually at night, Jack would think of Melissa, and Amy would sometimes think of Brent, because she didn't realize that there was a huge chasm. Amy didn't realize that there was a huge chasm between her and Brent until she met Jack. She always liked Brent and all that, but there was something missing, and she knew when she met Jack that something that was missing with Brent was there. But she didn't admit it, so she said, no, it can't be, he's cute, but it's not a real thing and whatever. So a few weeks later, they saw each other at the beach, and then he said hi. Jack said hi, and Amy said hi. So they decided to sit on the beach and just talk, and because they both were there alone. Like, he was there with some friends, but his friends couldn't make it, and she was there like alone just to figure out what was going on with her and Brent. And then they started with the small talk, but then the talk got deeper, and then they talked about their relationships, and she told Jack about, like, about how she met Brent and how their fathers were feuding, and she met Brent that way, and then her and Brent just got together that way, and then and then he told her about him and Melissa and how they started going together in high school, and how they were kind of not touchy feely. They were kind of like they were a couple, but they acted more like friends, and like he didn't know how to broach the subject with her, and his friends were teasing him at school, and you know and they both just started to talk not only about their relationships but about their parents, and she talked about the pressure to be this kind of Christian kid, which she was raised to be, but she wasn't really sure about God or her faith. And he talked about how he really didn't have faith, and he didn't know where he was going, and he was like in this like uh dead end relationship that he didn't know how to get out of because he didn't want to hurt her. So they talked for hours on the beach about everything. And then as they talked, their bond became stronger. And then when their bond became stronger, um, they each said, "Want to meet here tomorrow?" So they agreed to meet up again, and then take each other's email addresses and take each other's phone numbers. So they started communicating and talking, and then as they started communicating and talking, their emotional intimacy became so strong. They talked to each other about everything. And one day when they were talking on the beach, he kissed her. Jack kissed Amy, and then when they kissed, it was like the root. It was like everything changed. Everything was brighter. It was like their bodies were on fire. It was like every romance novel that Amy had ever read, or everything that Jack's friends were talking about. It was there with Amy. And then when he lifted his head, um, he he was like, "Well, what do we do?" And she was like, "We can't see each other anymore. This is cheating. This is wrong. We can't do this." And they both agreed to sever the ties, but um, they could, like, no matter how they tried to forget about each other, they couldn't. And one time, like a few weeks after, Jack called her and said, um, "I know we're trying to stay away from each other. I know it's wrong because we're both in committed relationships. We can't do this. Uh, we can't. We can't do this." And both of our significant others are away from the summer for the summer, and we can't cheat on them. So what do we do? And she's like, um, she's like, I need to see. I need to see you. I know it's wrong, but I can't take it anymore. She's like, Jack, I miss you. I've never felt this way with Brent. And he's like, I miss you too. I've never felt this way with Melissa. So they meet at the beach. And when they meet at the beach, it starts off as a platonic thing, but they kiss and kiss and kiss. And he goes straight from kissing her lips to kissing her neck and shoulders. And before you know it, they've slept together. And after they slept together, they both they both think it's a they both would think that it was a terrible mistake, but instead of thinking that it was a terrible mistake, they continue their affair until Amy finds out that she's pregnant and with Jack's baby. And because by the time she finds out she's pregnant, Brent's back and Melissa's back and school's in. But she finds out she's pregnant, and anyway, she calls Jack and lets him know that, hey, I'm pregnant. And she lets him know that, hey, I'm 4 months pregnant, because her mother wanted her to have, although her family is Christian, her mother was so focused on keeping up appearances. Her mother wanted her to have an abortion, and she said no, because her mother was afraid of what everybody in the church would say, and if her daughter got pregnant, and not only got pregnant, but not with her boyfriend's baby, with somebody else's baby. And so she kept it from her mother, and didn't tell Jack until she was 4 months. So they met at the beach, and she told Jack that, I'm pregnant, I'm going to have a baby. So, and he didn't tell Melissa that he got another girl pregnant because it was just a shameful thing, because he is not that kind of guy, but that would sleep with someone and not use protection and just get the girl pregnant. But they kind of lost control and lost their minds over each other, and it was just the last thing on their mind was, we should use protection. So anyway, when Amy got pregnant, she kind of hid it. She eventually told her mom, and because it was too late by that time for her to have an abortion, her mom sent her away to a cousin so that she could have her baby with the cousin, give it up, and that's it. So she moved in with her cousin. She had the baby. She finished high school with her cousin, right? And the baby was a girl. And what happened was, when she had the baby, by that time, they had graduated high school because that was 9 months, and it was about her her last year of high school. So it was 9 months, and by that time she had had the baby. She'd gotten her high school equivalency and was going to university. She had the baby and gave the baby up. And then when she had the baby, she called Jack and said, "Can I see you one last time?" And Jack hadn't told Melissa that anything was going on, and Brent didn't know. Brent just thought she was, Amy was visiting a cousin for some time because she needed a break from her mom. Brent had no idea that she went to have a baby and give it up for adoption. So anyway, when she had the baby, to tell Jack she had the baby and gave it up for adoption, she met him at their spot on the beach, and she t- she she showed him pictures of the baby in the hospital, pictures of her when she was pregnant, pictures of, the baby. So they met at their spot on the beach and they talked about the baby and the pregnancy and what they were going to do. And they were hoping that the baby girl would have a good life, a better life than what she could uh, she could have had with them, not only because they were teens, but because they were in two different relationships, and it was basically an affair they had for the summer. So they talked about their baby girl. They talked about what kind of life she would have. They speculated on the family she would go to, and they they did all that, and they looked out at the sea. They looked out at the water on the beach, and she said, having this baby was taking a chance for me. She's like, Amy was like, having this baby was taking a chance for me, and but I chose to chant. She said, it's like those rapids when you're whitewater rafting. I was afraid to have this baby, but it was the right thing to do. My mother wanted me to get rid of her, but I couldn't. And there was a time when I thought it would be easier, but I chose to take the chance. And she's like, I chose to chance the rapids. I chose to get out there and do something that would be less easy than just having an abortion. I chose, and and Jack's like, I'm so happy that you chose to chance those rapids because our little girl is gonna have a life with a family who loves her. And all of all of this will be for something. although we both made a mess of this relationship by making our mistakes, and we chose to do the right thing. And he's like, I'm so glad you chose to tell me, because a lot of girls in your situation wouldn't have told the father that they were going to be a father. They would have just had the baby and whatever. But you chose to not only tell me and include me in the decision, Jack said, but you chose to even show the pictures of your pregnancy, chose to include me along the way. So even though this was a mistake, I'm so grateful that you chose to take a chance on those rapids and do the hard thing. And I support you. And they hugged and they said, "Oh, let's go. We need to go," because it was starting to rain. So they were driving in one car because he was driving her home, and this was the last time they would see each other. So they were driving down the road, and it really started to pelt and really started to rain. And when it started to rain, they couldn't see that there was a truck coming straight for them, and they hit the truck, and they flipped over and flipped over and flipped over. And then Jack and Amy both didn't make it. They both died. And then little Marianne, which is their daughter, was now without biological parents. And next week, I will continue this story about what happened to now Jack's girlfriend Melissa and Amy's boyfriend Brent and little Mary Ann. So I hope next week you'll tune in for that. I'm so happy that you joined me for this week's Storytime Sunday. Bye. I will sing my last song to the river and like a bird upon the wind. These waters are my sky, and I won't reach my destination if I never try. I will sing forever. So join me next week for Dance the Tide, which is part 2. of this series. I will sail my vessel till the river runs dry, like a bird upon the wind. These waters. Oh God. I will sail my vessel till the river runs dry, like a bird upon the wind. These waters are my sky, and I won't reach my destiny if I never try. So I will sail my vessel till the river runs dry. I will sail my vessel till the river runs dry. So hopefully now it'll work. Sorry guys, it's just been a trial trying to get this thing off this morning. I want to thank you for sticking with me and all that stuff. Bye.